The next guy we're going to talk about is Aidan Hutchinson, the number 2 pick in the NFL draft to the Lions. Look, him and Travon Walker are always going to be compared to each other, for better or for worse, and even to a lesser extent, Kayvon Thibeduaex. Their contribution in terms of sacks was inconsistent up through week 7, and it's unfortunate that a lot of people, that's the only statistic they look at to judge and be their barometer or their measuring stick in terms of how an edge player is playing. Walker now has 2 sacks after getting one against the Giants in week 7. And Hutchinson, who we're looking at now, is up to 4.5 sacks after generating a sack and a half and 3 quarterback hits in the Giants' 24-6 loss to the Cowboys. They'll always be linked to each other, like I said, and I think it's a little unfortunate sometimes when people try to say which guy is better than the other, because to me, you would take both of them on their team. Walker's had more of a global impact across multiple types of plays, a little bit more similar to Kayvon Thibeduaex, stepping out into the flats to play the pass, maybe a little bit more impactful against the run. But Hutchinson, to me, looks like the guy who's the most ready to attack against the pass. He's got 9 quarterback hits and 4.5 sacks, so that exceeds Walker's numbers in that area. But again, Walker's a guy who, he does everything the Jags are asking him to do. Very unselfish, and I feel like Hutchinson is in the same vein. They're a little bit more specific about him in terms of how they're using him in Detroit. He's a strong side D end in a lot of cases. Now, in this case, he's got the 1 technique or the 2 eye to his side. So in some people's terminology, they will call him a weak side guy. But in a moment, you're going to see his alignment is generally consistent when they get a tight end to that side. He's in a 7 technique or maybe a 6. And in some ways, that kind of limits his pass rush options when he's lined up and he's got a tight end outside of him, because he's worried about the run first, or in a lot of cases, he's stepping down like I'm showing here. Normally, they're doing that when they have a strong safety, or in this case, a linebacker lined up outside of him. So they're just trying to cover all the gaps. And in my opinion, sometimes that can slow down his pass rush progression in terms of trying to run an actual move. 3 sacks against Washington earlier in the year. Look, if it wasn't for Hutchinson, the Lions only have 7 sacks overall as a team. So he has half of their production in terms of sacks this year. Only one other guy has even more than 1 sack. I think it's Alex Anzalone, who has like a sack and a half at this point after 7 games. Early in the season, Hutchinson just didn't seem to be winning one-on-one matchups. And it's not like I have a ton of film of him doing this here, but he's having an impact, if you ask me. And look, I understand the Lions are only 1-5, but they got 2 really close losses. 38-35 to the Eagles in week 1. And unless I'm wrong, I think the Eagles had to convert a 4th and 1 in the final minute to close that game out. And then possibly the game of the year, which I have a little bit of film of here, the 48-45 loss to the Seahawks, which was, like I said, possibly the game of the year. I like how Hutchinson's playing when they line him up like inside of a tight end. Now, there's 2 tight ends here, so he's lined up between them. To me, it kind of inhibits his pass rush, but also it enhances his ability to play the run, because these tight ends just can't handle him. Watch what he does to number 84. I mean, now granted, I think the outside tight end might, there might be some kind of clipping here against his own teammate, but this is not an isolated example. Aidan Hutchinson plays this way against the run often against tight ends. He's acclimated quickly, if you ask me, to making his run pass read and then reacting. 6'7", tremendous athlete, if you ask me. Just very underrated. And when they play him in this 7 technique, which is like inside shade of the tight end, with the 3 technique to his side, it just makes it really devastating against the run, whether it's to him or away from him. So long as he's got a force player outside him. You can see number 25 lined up outside him as a DB. He would be the force player, quote unquote, on any run action outside of the tight end. I felt like Hutchinson's athleticism was underrated during the draft process, but I guess it's difficult when you're being constantly compared to Travon Walker, who's got all the physical tools and all the athleticism on his side. I guess it makes sense. He's in the top 20 right now in sacks at 4.5. I think the league leaders is 2 guys tied for 7. Aidan Hutchinson has probably left some plays out there on the field. He thinks this is one here, even though his team gets a tackle for loss. I'm not sure that he gets credited for one there. He's got the ability to have 10 or 12 sacks this year as a rookie, because he's shown the ability to have multi-sack games when he's got an advantage in his favor. Like I said, high motor guy, athletic for being 6'7". You see him here against this zone read play. I see him checking often pre-snap with the linebackers to make sure they've got the call right. I think he's playing between 55 and 60 snaps per game. Another run play where he's lined up inside shade on the tight end. They stunt him inside a lot. This is a missed tackle that, like I said, he feels like he left this play out on the field. They stunt him inside a lot, meaning he's stepping down even when the tight end is releasing outside of him. So he's got two reads there sometimes if he's lined up between the tight end as the tackle, tight end and the tackle. Another example of him, being lined up inside the tight end, and I think he's going to pinch down again. So this kind of gets in the way of him in terms of pass rush production. When he's asked to do these things, normally it's probably 1st and 10 or a run down. So they're stemming him inside or maybe stepping him to the tackle from that 7 technique alignment. It's not a true 7 technique if you're stepping down to the tackle. A true 7 is stepping to the tight end, and your visual key would be the D or the tackle inside of you. Sometimes they use him as like this wide 3 technique in pass rush situations. He's not. It doesn't look like he's lined up in a 3, but the rush lane he's going to be responsible for is outside the guard, in between the guard and the tackle. That's a B-gap rusher, so that's why I call it a 3 technique. I'm not sure that this is the best use for him right now in terms of the matchup. He seems better suited to rushing on the edge, but the Giants, the Lions have a couple of other guys who are capable of doing this. Harris among them. Those guys are capable pass rushers, so I understand why they're putting him inside there sometimes. I love the way they're using him. Don't get me wrong. I feel like his pass rush production overall would be a little higher if he wasn't lined up to the tight end side so much. At least it seemed like to me he was lined up to the tight end side. In this case, he's got 2 tight ends he's dealing with. So just like I said earlier, the visual key and the amount of time it takes him to recognize, okay, the tight ends aren't stepping to me, they're releasing outside. Let me go ahead and start running my move. I don't feel like anyone, very few people have the ability on run pass downs to go ahead and read pass and then attack and get to the quarterback, especially when the quarterback is throwing the ball as quickly as Geno Smith is here. So I don't think that, even him only having 4.5 sacks, which is the highest number for any rookie to my knowledge, is a situation where it indicates that he's not playing well. They use him occasionally in zone drops, but Kayvon Thibeduaex and Travon Walker are the rookies that are utilized more so in that manner. Typically, for a D end or an outside linebacker, that's going to be to the boundary, which is what you've got here. Short side of the field or the boundary is to our right on screen, and then this will be the field to the right side. Let me know what you think of Aidan Hutchinson so far. Look, from a 7 technique position, his pass rush options are a little more rigid. And then from that 3 technique, I'm just not sure it's matchups that are set up in his favor. Overall, I think he's given the Lions exactly what they drafted. You can see pre-snap, he's checking with number 34 for the call here. And then he's lined up to the tight end side. You got a 3 here, and he's lined up just outside eye. But he's definitely tilted to be able to play this C gap while he's got a DB outside of him. That seems to be a consistent in their defense. If he's lined up to the tight end side, they've got a DB outside of him to be the force player. If he ended up with 12 or 13 sacks this year, that wouldn't surprise me for real. If he ended up with 10, that wouldn't surprise me either. Here's an example where they're playing man, and it's going to be this weird pull scheme by the guard. This is what the Browns do to a lot of people. The left guard's going to pull and wrap all the way outside, and then the back is going to step down and then delay out to the right. There is no DB or safety to be the force player because the receiver is cracking the safety and they're playing man, so the corner came with him. So really, there's a huge gain off the right side to Aidan Hutchinson's side. And some people might say, well, he's not playing that well. Well, he's in his gap. There's no one who's playing this outside gap, what is essentially D gap outside the tight end because he's got C gap inside of him. To me, it doesn't look like tight ends can block him at all in the run game. As long as he's supported outside the tight end with a force player who can actually get involved, I feel like they'll be fine against the run. This is a trap play. Looks like a pass situation. They're going to trap this D end who's lined up as a D tackle, leaving him unblocked, kicking him out with the guard. I'll rewind this so you can see it. They've given up big plays. I know the Lions' defense has not played well all year generally. They did play a little bit better, I thought, against the Cowboys in Week 7. I did not utilize film from that because that film doesn't come out until late, and I wanted to produce this video. Let me know what you guys think of Aidan Hutchinson. Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up with 10 sacks. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up with 12 or 13 because at least on this team so far, it looks like the type of situation where teams might start to focus on Hutchinson and try to limit his opportunities in the pass as compared to his other teammates, because he really stands out on that team in terms of sacks at 4.5 and then QB hits overall at 9. Let me know what you think of Aidan Hutchinson's play so far as a rookie, and if you think he is indeed the best rookie edge defender in the NFL right now.